Hi everyone, welcome back. This is Alexander Lim and welcome to AuthorStory. Our guest today is Medical Director Arun Singh. He is the Professor of Surgery at Brown University's Alpert Medical School. And he is also this week's featured guest. He is the author of Your Heart, My Hands, An Immigrant's Remarkable Journey to Become One of America's Preeminent Cardiac Surgeons, which you can check out right now by clicking on the Amazon link in the video description below. Aaron has performed an amazing 15,000 open heart cardiac surgeries, as well as another 5,000 related procedures, which possibly makes him the most experienced cardiac surgeon in the world. So, Aaron, again, thank you very much, and welcome again to Author Story.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So, Aaron, you're an extremely successful surgeon now, but way back when you were a kid, did you ever think or have any indication that you'd want to get into surgery?
No, I was never thought of, I had no interest in becoming a doctor even, and I had no interest to become a surgeon when I became a doctor.
Okay.
But because of my rebellious nature, if somebody tell you not to do that, I always did that opposite. I was very curious. I was inquisitive mind, and as well as a rebellious mind. So I try to find myself why I couldn't do it. And that led me to a lot of trouble, and a lot of trouble was created by me because of this behavior.
Okay, well, it got you to where you are, so I guess there's something to be said for having a rebellious nature.
That's right.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so first I'd like to get a little bit into your childhood. From what I understand, you I don't know if you say you were dyslexic and you had an accident which paralyzed your dominant hand.
Yeah, that's right. When I was about close to 6.5 years old,
Uh-huh.
one afternoon I decided to sneak out of my backyard.
Okay.
This is back in India, a small town. My dad was a headmaster, and so we had a quarter, and we had a little bit trees of guava, mangoes, and tropical fruits.
Right.
And I decided to climb up about 12 feet high tree and fetch a ripe guava and eat myself in the afternoon, have a fun. So I decided to climb all the way, and I did. And when I was ready to put my hand to grab the guava, I suddenly saw a Hanuman lumber monkey leaping. He saw the same thing, and he wanted the same thing. So suddenly I saw right on my face a square jaw, big teeth hanging like a fang, and hands up, and I suddenly got scared. And I got scared. I let the branch go, my hand go. Suddenly I landed 12 feet on rock, and I smashed completely my forehead, it missed the eye. I had a skull fracture, and dismantled entirely my right joints of the right elbow. I had a severe fracture, which led to multiple problems. So I was picked up by mom, and I was taken to the dad and taken to the small dispensary. This is a small town in India in 49 and 50s. So you can imagine there was no care, no facility. Even the X-ray was rare those days. So they showed me up and they said, "Look, your hand is seriously injured." They told my parents, and I said, "I need to go to a bigger and better facility." So my parents took me to 150 miles, 24-hour train ride to near my grandfather's house. And when the doctor saw me over there, they said, this is a terrible injury, but we'll do our best. To make the story short, then it took a 2.5 years before my hand got multiple procedure, and still my hand was not right. My right hand was paralyzed. I was not able to pick a piece of paper or held a pencil or write it. I was educated during that 3.5 years at home by my mom, who was only 10th grade educated. So you can imagine, I was 7 years old, 3.5 years, I missed the entire schooling. I did not have the elementary school. I did not have middle school. I did not have kindergarten or any of those education. So I just taught, and I missed a lot of my childhood at that point in time. So, so when I went to the school, so I had to wait because a public school was filled already, and the middle of the year I couldn't get in, so I had more time. So because of I was bored, because of my inquisitive nature, because
Okay.
of my uh, creative ideas.
Right.
I started doing things which I shouldn't have never done it. So I faced a lot of headwind back in
Uh,
India because
uh,
a lot of my creation, a lot of my familiar, as well culture, as well my rebellious nature. Some of the
right.
things which I did, I should not have done it. Like I will hop the train without buying a ticket, go to train
Okay.
station and turn around, come back.
Right.
I will, prowl the market. I will call it the back alleys.
Mm-hmm.
Only thing I did not do, pickpocketed, like the character described by, fiction Dodger of Dickens, Oliver
Right.
Twist.
Right. Right.
But
Right.
I flaunted the authority all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and I walked on the street as a bad kid, and I thought people call me a bad kid, I thought it was a badge of honor. I was rebellious.
Mm-hmm.
I was. It's not that I was stupid, but I was rebellious, and I was jealous that all other kids were going to school. I
Right.
was robbed my childhood.
Mm-hmm.
I was frustrated, and so that's what I was doing. So I got into so-called kite flying,
Mm-hmm.
and the kite flying was most of you have read about the kite flying. Kite
Right.
flying in Asia is a very competitive sport.
Mm-hmm.
And what it basically is a beautiful sport, yet cutthroat, is a very competitive sport.
Mm-hmm.
It is a very serious sport. So what it really means, kite flying in India or Southeast Asia,
Mm-hmm.
when you fly the kite in the sky, you you cut all the kite, to the computer's lane. That means all the kites in the sky, you cut it out and let them plummet into the ground.
All right.
The single kite aloft and to a neighborhood, a challenge, bring
Mm-hmm.
it on. So it's a
Right.
very competitive sports, and
Mm-hmm.
I got into that sports, and I was very good. One day I was positioned in a semifinal to what do you call competition,
Mm-hmm.
and I was really good. And so I cornered myself on a high hill, not knowing the surrounding, and a black kite came in and tried to cut me off. And
Right.
suddenly people yelled to me, they said, "Hey, watch this kite coming up!
Right.
Is going to cut you."
Okay.
And I tried to pull my kite out.
Right. Right.
Suddenly, my kite was cut, and I was in ditches and broke my hand again on left side.
Oh, okay. All right.
So I had to go through all again. So that
Right.
was my okay. So
Okay.
that's the injury I got. How did I recover? How did I get rehab? You may
Yeah.
want to ask her, but I'll tell you how I recovered. There was no rehab in India,
Okay.
and
Okay.
even a small town.
Uh-huh.
So how did we do? I do it. My mom, with working with the orthopedic doctor,
Mm-hmm.
came up with a plan. There was no weightlifting machine. There was no ultrasound. There was no ice machine. There was no TV. There was no
Right.
massage therapy. There was no rubber band to stretch it when you go in your ball to lay on it. So what my mom did, she put a brick in the bag, tied my hand,
Mm-hmm.
and I will stagger down the street carrying a brick,
Mm-hmm.
first one brick like a inmate in penal colony. I will do it once, twice a day,
All
and
right.
then one brick, two brick, four bricks. I did. I also my wrist wasn't very good, so she will lift me up. Back home in India, the windows have a cross horizontal bars
Mm-hmm.
to prevent intrusion to come. I will hold on those bars. I will
Right.
hang on like a bat. People pass by will say, "Oh, this is a noble way to punish this kid. He's pretty bad."
Okay. Okay.
And I'll hang on. I will sob. I will cry. I will scream. But that's what I did over the years. My hand got better, and
Mm-hmm.
I went to finally. I got into high school
All right.
when I was 10 years old.
Okay. And I have to hand to you. I mean, you graduated from medical school, top honors at the age of 22, even after staying out of the educational
Yeah,
system.
well, what happened here, Alex, was simple. First, when I went into school, I didn't have any friends because I had a lot of missed out. And
Mm-hmm.
I started cutting the corners again. I was below average students. I wasn't very good. But then in college, I said, well, I didn't have friends. I went to the the lowest, the not very good college. But I wasn't stupid, but I hadn't had friends, so I started studying a little bit more,
Right.
and I did pass the exam well, and I got into medical school. When I got into medical school, I realized I wasn't getting it. Here I was only 16 and a half, 17-year old.
Right.
Most of the kids were like older than me, had a beard, they had a nice grown up, and I was like a kid. First, they didn't want to talk to me, but when I studied, I couldn't understand what I'm studying. So I didn't realize that those days there was no diagnosis of dyslexia. Later on, they found out later on when I was here, they say, well, you're severely dyslexic. I didn't know what dyslexia was. A lot of people in 50s in this country, in 60s, didn't know what the dyslexia was.
Right.
So I didn't know about the dyslexia. But I had one advantage, Alex. I had insomnia. So if I didn't get it, read it once, I'll read 3 times, 4 times till I memorize.
Right.
I will make a code. I will make acronyms, and I will that way I will do it. And when I was in the first year of medical school, I was bottom of the class of the medical school, and I was heading home. And on one of the train station, I ran into my summer vacation. Ran to my uncle, and he put his hand on my shoulder. He said, "I'm so glad to see you." I said, "I'm so glad to see you too."
Right.
So he said, "Well, I'm heading to your home. Your dad had a massive stroke, and he may not survive."
Ouch.
So here I am. I was really. It was so. I started crying. I straight went up to the. I was so discouraged. I went straight to the hospital. And you have to realize it's not like a Western world here. In India, a public or city hospital or public hospital or government hospital, you have a room which is the size of 20 by 20, and there will be 30 patients. Metal cot, dogs are running on the side, temperature 100 degree, smells like a putrid. And I go there. My dad is lying conscious, tube in the throat. Mom is fanning to keep the flies away, and he's unconscious. I was devastated. It smelled like a death. And I remember I said my mom had only 10th grade education. So when you have education back home, if you don't earn, if you don't work, there's no way to make a living unless you come from a very well-to-do family. I did not. So what happened? There's no welfare. There's no Medicare. There's no retirement plan. And suddenly we started losing whatever saving we had over the next few weeks. We lost it. Families supported some as time went on. They had their own things to do. At that point in time, one day, my mom and I took the summer off, stayed with, helped to take care of Dad in the hospital. And one day my mom comes in. I saw her pain. I saw her anguish, and she said to me, "I want you to grow up. I want you to take care of the family. You are the guardian of the family today." And that day I became a guardian. Remember when I was sick as a kid, I had every disease you could think of. Malaria, typhoid, smallpox, chickenpox, hepatitis. And when my hand was completely paralyzed, early days, and when a doctor said, we can leave the way it is, at least he can feed himself. At that point, my dad was very angry, and he says, he brought a embarrassment to the Singh family, and you mean to say to the doctor, he was yelling, said, my eldest son is going to be a doctor. At that point in time, my mom was the one who came and rescued me. And what I was started crying, knowing the idea that I'd be a beggar. Because having the idea of seeing a beggar standing on the street in a broken pan looking for, passing by for coin or food, idea of to have a beggar was more painful than to have an idea of a broken arm. So at that point in time, my mom had grabbed me and she said to me, get up, look up, and don't give up. So that idea had resilient in my mind that because my mom worked this line mantra, get up, look up, and don't give up. And I said, you know what? I'm going to work hard. And so after when mom said, I want to be guardian, I went back to school. I gave up every sports. I took care of my brother, sister. I paddled them to school, 100-degree temperature, one on the rod, one on the back. I became a guardian, and I graduated medical school. Believe it or not, second in class. I could, out of 110 students, I could have graduated first in class because I did poorly in surgery.
Right. Okay. That's a little
So,
ironic.
so that's how. So I became a doctor at age
Okay.
21, 22.
All right. Okay. Cool. I want to talk about the next step in your journey. I mean, this is the big thing, like the emigrating from India to the United States. Now, I know that immigrants, I mean, even tourists, if they go to a land that's not theirs, they get a lot of culture shock. What were some of the things that shocked you when you got to the United States?
Well, Alex, that's a very good question. First of all, why I left India? Nobody
Okay.
wants to live their home. And if you ask them, because that's the most comfortable place, your home, your parents, your family,
Right.
regardless of what country comes. There are circumstances people leave. And I see a lot of immigrants are coming in, they're not all, I don't think they're all criminal, but anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to get into politics. But they're leaving because they cannot make it. Same was situation for me. My parents can't work. My dad had a stroke. My mom taking care of him. We had no belonging, no nothings. So I'm the guardian. I'm the one became a doctor. Now I could get training there, but they won't pay me during the training in India, and probably I'll be having not a great job. Here I got opportunity to come to this. They will pay me, get the best training. That was the best training in the world. Still it is at that time, and I'll have some money. This way I can save money and send it to my family. Because exchange rates are high and they can make a living. So that was the only reason I left India. When I left India, I had $8 in my pocket, and $3 I bought the cheapest plane fare tickets. I had 9 stops, took a 36-hour flight. I had $3 spent overnight stay from London to Heathrow Airport to Victoria Station, coming forth. So when I left London to the United States, I had $5 in my pocket. That's the most valuable money I held, $5 Lincoln in my pocket. I kept putting my hand in the pocket to make sure Mr. Lincoln doesn't escape out of my pocket. When I arrived, it's a two different world. Remember, I'm here coming in the Eastern culture. Here is a Western culture. It's the entire, it's a 12-hour difference time, different culture, different religion, different race, different appearance, etc. What did I felt? I felt disappointment, discouragement, I felt discrimination, I felt racism. But I was one thing, Alex. I knew all of these problems, we're going to face it. When I arrived in 60s, in the Vietnam was in the peak, Tet action wasn't ready. The riots all over this campus. Martin Luther King was assassinated. Robert Kennedy was assassinated. When I worked in the hospital in India, even the emergency room was dirty, filthy, putrid. People came with a malnutrition. People came with infectious disease. Peacefully, they died. When I worked here in this hospital in America, the emergency room was clean, all the facility, people coming, dying in a blaze, a gunshot wound, chained up to the bed, blood coming all around. So it was a really cultural shock. And remember, I did not know a single person in this world. So when I put that thing, I arrived $5. It cost me $3.25 to take a cab in Worcester to go to the hospital. It cost me $1.50 to send a telegram to my parents, arrive safely. So when I wake up, and next day, a new world, I had only quarter in my pocket.
Right. And those are, I don't know how to put this. I mean, those are really, really humble beginnings. I mean, that really says something about, your determination.
Yeah, well, I was focused, as I said in the book. If you read, this book is like your heart, my hand. It's not for a medical book. It is a book for anyone, everyone. This is a book. It's an immigrant story. This is a book about a kid with a disabled, the kid with the love of mom. How I got out of this thing, and again, it's an American story, like many Americans. I'm not the only one. Like many, I'm one of the one. I'm the living example. With all these problems I had, dyslexia, disability, immigrant, different color, different race, if you work hard, if you're determined, if you focus, you have a grit, you will overcome most discouraging obstacle. And I did. I had, when I went into practice, I had a lot of setbacks, disappointment, discouragement, deaths. You know, my wife was sick, kids were up. I had grown up, my kids had some issues. All of this was I had to take at the same time, but I was focused, determined that and there were two people in my life you had to remember. One is my mom as a childhood, and I met a lovely lady here, my wife. She pulled me out my darkest day in my adult life. She was with me, by me, side me. She supported my cause, and I could not have done without her and my mom and my wife.
Right. Okay. So I take it then you're still in contact with your family in India?
My mom, died in 2007.
Sorry to hear
It's a sad story. Was one day I was operating in the operating room in the middle of the night, and I always call a time difference, 10-hour, 12-hour difference. So at night, middle of the night, I'll call it silver daytime. So I spoke one night, and she said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm going to go do emergency surgery on a lady who had a heart attack, trying to save her." She said, I said, "What are you doing?" She said, "Well, my nephew and nieces are coming, and she's going to cooking a lovely dinner." And what she was making, I said, "Mom, I feel hungry." So, then I said, "Well, I got to go." She said, "Well, tell the old lady that all is tough, but please take care of her good and wish her my best." I said, "I will do that." And I went ahead and got surgery done. And when I got out of the operating room about 2 in the morning, which was 4 hours afterwards, I had a message to call home. So I thought something happened to my home, my kids or my wife. So when I called home, my wife said, "No, call home." So I called home back in India. So I called home back in India. My sister picked up the phone and she was crying. And I said to her, "What happened?" She says her mom cooked a lovely dinner. She did fine. And right after that, she had severe chest pain, and we took her to the emergency room. She had a massive heart attack, and she died. And I couldn't believe it. Here I was there for everyone. I saved everyone, and I was sitting there, and I thought about, if it wasn't about my mom, I would not be here. I would not be in this country. I would not be a surgeon. She was, and I could not be there. It was devastating to me. But that's the life. I had to take care of people, and I started. But we did visit a few years later, and I could not be there for her funeral because back home, because of warm weather and our culture, we believe the body has to be cremated right away because the soul is not free as long as the body is there. So she was cremated right after the death. I did pray for her soul with the priest, but a few years later, I did go there with my wife, and we went to Ganges with the Varanasi, the oldest and the holiest city in India. Took her ashes, and you put in the clay pot and let it go in the Ganges to go wherever it goes. So what it means that the people say in our mythology, in the culture, if your ashes is cremated near Ganges, your next life, you go to nirvana. And so that's what we did. This was very emotional, very tough, but that was my lady, that was my mom, and I would not have done without her.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a big loss. I can imagine.
I guess we always lose them. We never forget. But like a loss of parents is always painful to everyone. Because you can have two wives, you can have three husbands, or you can have many kids, but you'll have only one set of parents. Remember that.
That's true. That's true.
You will never lose. So this book also we talk about, Alex, about how patient impacted my heart and how I impacted theirs. I don't talk about in this book the policies or any other things because, as you know, it's very complicated. I must say that people ask us, when you're in the mask and gown,
Mm-hmm.
are you, Dr. Singh is not emotional. He doesn't say much.
Right, right.
I had to tell you one thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's not true.
Mm-hmm.
Like most of the surgeons, one of the great baseball players said once, he often quoted, control your emotion, otherwise emotion will control. When we perform the surgery,
Mm-hmm.
we focus, determine, have a tunnel vision,
Right.
so we can do our work. That doesn't mean we don't have a heart. That
Right.
doesn't mean we don't have blood flowing in our blood.
Right. Right.
We don't have ice.
Mm-hmm.
We do have emotion. Every life matters, regardless of age, sex, race, and religion. They all look the same underneath the drapes.
Right.
And I wish I could say I saved each and every one more than 15,000 operations I did. The reality was not there because
Yeah.
some people didn't make it.
Right.
Those who did not, we carry their pain, burden deep down our heart. We never forgotten them. It's a painful, but we don't. And I remember a kid who I operated. I did baby Alex also, from premature baby to
Mm-hmm.
99-year-old.
Okay.
We
Okay.
talk. We talk in this book. What do you do
Right.
uh, to the 99-year-old or 98-year-old man who's in good shape? Because
Right.
pretty soon now, lots of people are going to live to 100,
Mm-hmm.
102, 103. Should we say let them go? What do you
Right.
do?
Right.
People
Right.
who has immigrant who flew in there and is sick and dying and a heart problem. You say,
Right.
well, he has no insurance, no policy. Should we operate? Is going to lose money? What do we do? A woman who's single mom and pregnant,
Right.
uh, had a niece open heart surgery.
Mm-hmm.
Do we miscarry or abort the baby because there's a very good chance? Or the mother has a right to say, we want what I want to do.
Right.
You know, what do you do, patients who has a infection of heart valve because of drug addiction?
Right.
If you say, well, you use the drug, I'm not going to do it. You're dopey.
Yeah.
What do
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
do? What do you do? A patient or a person served in Afghan war, Iraq war, comes back with a hepatitis C
Mm-hmm.
and AIDS,
Mm-hmm.
and now he needs a heart operation. Should
Right.
we say, well, he has AIDS, he's not going to live more than 2 years, let him go? But how do you know that he's not going to live 2 years? He may live 5 years.
Right.
And the quality of time, 5 years, he can do what he can do. He can watch his son or family to parents or kids to grow, or he
Right.
can watch his daughter to get married, or he see his son to graduate college. Even he lives 3, 4 years. Is that important or
Mm-hmm.
not? It may not important to you, but it's important to him.
Right. Right.
So you have to talk, as we talk about some of these human stories in the book,
Mm-hmm.
how it's not a technical stories,
Right.
how I felt a loss of a child
Mm-hmm.
who I operated on a baby, one is few months old,
Uh-huh.
and he had only 3 chambers of the heart. He will come
Right.
in the hospital often and get it treated. And eventually he needed an operation at age seven,
Mm-hmm.
6 or 7, and he died.
Mm-hmm.
Before he left, he gave me a book, Please Make My Heart Better.
Mm-hmm.
I was devastated. I was devastated because he was a beautiful kid. How bleakly I ponder the randomness of nature and life.
Right.
He prematurely took the life of this beautiful baby,
Right. Right.
that would, so that was the issue. It bothered me. And I wondered and I thought about how this young kid and parent had endured, and the emotion was so hard, was so big
Mm-hmm.
that, that I thought, who to say the next child is born is not going to have this problem?
Right.
Because and who to say my next child will not have a problem?
Right.
So we talked about it. I was so much emotionally involved. I had 2 healthy kids, and I talked to my wife, and even though it was not rational, we decided not to have any more children
Mm-hmm.
because I did not want to see another child to bear this pain and suffering.
Right.
Because likelihood was very, very small. So this is a story, Alex, is a human story of this book. I will recommend everyone and each one read it. Your Heart, My Hands. It's not a technical book,
Right.
and
Right.
It's easy to read, and that's what I would say.
Okay, great, fantastic, and definitely, yeah. I mean, people
You can
definitely.
get it anywhere. You can get Amazon. You can Barnes and Nobles. You
Right.
can get Target, and you can get anywhere. This book is available. It's published by Hachette. It's very well. Reviews have been great, and it's not because I wrote it. I don't want to tell you, but it's a great reading. It is a human story and a story of immigrant. This is an American story.
All
That
right.
if you work hard, if you're determined, willing to have some failure, you have a grit despite all of those problems, despite immigration, dyslexia, disadvantage, you will overcome discouraging obstacles.
All right, fantastic. So great words right there. So thank you very much for the insights.
Thank you for having me,
All right.
Alex.
So in closing then, the book is Your Heart, My Hands. The authors are guest, Dr. Arun Singh, and you can find him, as you mentioned, on such websites as Amazon. So Arun, thank you again. Thank you very much for being an author story. It was, I must say, it was very insightful hearing your story and hearing you talk about your story.
Thank you very much for having me, and have a wonderful day.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Take care.
So, everyone, check out Your Heart, My Hands, and be sure to subscribe to our channel to check out all the awesome authors and great books we have covered and will cover in the future. See you all next time on the Author Story when we speak to another inspiring author about another fantastic book.